Welcome to the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Join your hosts, three-time WBFF world champions and WBFF royalty, Alicia Gowans and Stephanie Ayala McHugh, as we explore all things female health, training, competing, mindset, and living the fitness life every day.
I am so excited to be able to see you again, Stephanie, this week as we welcome everybody back to what is episode 9 of the Queen Divas podcast, Queens of Fitness. Episode 9. I had to double check with Chris Oscar. I'm like, what number are we at? Because we haven't come online for a few weeks. We've had a few things going on. The very last time we were going to record, I had my surgery changed. We had a COVID disruption that basically scheduled me back a month. I was in for surgery in the morning. We're meant to be having the podcast. So we've got a whole heap of things going on. Between that, we had the Orlando show and then the Gold Coast show kicking off Australia's start to the WBFF season. It feels so good to have it all alive again. And
so good.
I'm 100% grateful for the ability to be doing what we love and be back in the thick of what we love and be able to see our clients showcase all their hard work and have this end goal to it all. Like, there's no words to describe it, right? So for me, when we're talking about what's been a highlight for our last few weeks, just the kicking off and the reinvigorated approach to the WBFF would definitely be one of mine. And then seeing the hard work of some of our amazing athletes finally come to play after toil and trouble and managing challenges. And we had one of our girls trying to, prep all through mine sites underground, not able to access food, like all sorts of stuff.
You make it. You made it on stage though, right?
Exactly.
That was
she not only made it, she took out her lineup, went pro. So
amazing. That's a good story. It's a good story.
So look, that's my highlight, and I'm incredibly grateful for the fact that we have got some amazing figureheads at the top of this brand that have enabled it all to continue to flourish despite the pandemic. And we've seen a lot of things fail over that time, and WBFF is not one of them. We are legitimately rising strong.
They're fighting strong.
It's just awesome. I'm really glad.
Same here, Ali. I'm still on a high. I know you just came off show weekend. I'm 2 weeks going into a post show for us. The Orlando show was first, and that was the kickoff here in the States for the international show, Orlando Pro-Am. We missed all of our international travelers and Australians. We missed you guys there. It was honestly weird. It was really weird to attend this show and not have you guys there. It was such a great. Yeah, no, it was such a great show though. Even though it was smaller, and I think that what I mean by that is there was not a lot of internationals, right? But the show quality was incredible. It was seriously some of the best I've seen up there. I'm sure you guys, from watching afar, watching the Australia show, I think you guys can say the same. Some amazing, competitors. I felt like it was such a great lineup too. But overall, Allie, I'm just overjoyed, overwhelmed with such gratitude and just feeling so on top of the world with my team, no matter what placing, no matter what, happened that weekend. It was just about getting to stage. And a lot of you listening, just know it's a win in itself. Getting to that stage is so hard to compete. It's so hard to even endure a prep. So getting to that stage is a win. So anyways, very much so. Hey, a lot of competition stuff, a lot of peak week, a lot of, excitement, a lot of diva, a lot of glam. That's what the WBFF is all about.
Wasn't it just? I mean, it was incredible. I think, for the only thing that I will caveat this with actually was a very strange show for me in one regard, because I had literally just had my surgery 7 days prior. And I'm still not publicly going through what I've gone through just yet. I'm still going through some of it. So when this all is finished, we will probably do a whole bloody podcast on it. But in the meantime, I'll just talk about the fact that, I've had these things going on. And I was post that process, and I literally was swollen, was sore. I couldn't fit into any of my clothes because I just had all this post-surgery information. I felt like I had the world's fattest face. I'm like, is there enough contour on the planet to make this or what? So I rang my girl at Princely Couture. She's amazing. Anyone listening to this, Princely Couture, they have the most amazing gowns. I highly recommend them to anyone. In fact, anyone on this anyone on this and any of our audience that wants to potentially utilize Princely, I will speak to Susanna. Please just let her know. Alicia 15, tell her that, and she will look after you. You'll get a discount on anything that you hire or purchase. But I basically said to her, babe, you can't dress me like we normally dress because I won't fit into anything. And I'm going to be so swollen. I don't know how I'm going to feel. I said, I don't even know. I need to look and feel beautiful. And I don't know if it's going to be possible. She walked into the room on the Thursday, still swollen, still incredibly sore. Anyway, she had me walk out with 2 gowns that I must admit, I was still able to feel somewhat myself, which was awesome because, to be quite honest with you, there is nothing more difficult than being, as you know, Steph, at our level and the expectation on us to be a certain thing, right? There is nothing more difficult than stepping into something and not feeling that or not vibing that, or there's a question mark around it. And so I had a little bit of trepidation, I had a little bit of nerves, I had a little bit of anxiety, and I wasn't even getting on the bloody stage. Well, in fact, I was for a crown gala, which was enough for me. So that was enough, but I had all those nerves. So I was in the audience thinking about this a bit too, and thinking about our upcoming podcast and the importance of, I believe, as a professional athlete and definitely as a crown diva, the importance of looking after oneself, one's health, one's wellness, and one's entire physique all year round. Now, that doesn't mean, and nor am I saying that we should be stage leading, because I definitely don't think so. I think that's rubbish. But I think we should be looking really tidy but healthy, right? And this will wrap into today's discussion around reverse dieting. And look, talking about this too, you're the queen actually of making sure that when you're at any of these events, you look paramount. You look like you're literally 6 weeks from a stage, which I think is something that's aspirational. But at the same point in time, you're not, I know, living at the low caloric deficit component all year round at all, because I've been with you eating tamales and I know all about the fact that you
I enjoy all the foods. Hey, and I'm going to actually scale back on that. What I mean is that I've been able to learn, my body. And I think this is a very important topic that we're going into here, is the reverse dieting of show is the biggest teacher that has been in my journey for fitness has been reverse dieting. And for me, coming out of my first show, particularly, I did not know what the hell I did. I didn't know what just happened. I was one of those poof, what the hell, literally, like, what did I do? I blew up.
I love this. I love you're sharing this, because I think a lot of people only really have the biggest following for you has come in the last couple of years, where we've not publicly shown that, right? So it's good for people to understand, A, you're a human too, you're not a robot, and B, that hey, we've all learned from literally falling on our asses sometimes as well. So when you did this little poof, shamoo, Goodyear blimp, next level, rise to just plumpness. What were you doing? What did you do?
Post the show, what did it look like? You literally just think you stop. I was training weights because I think everybody that's in this fitness journey, or at least when you're learning, to adapt to a new lifestyle, you like the weight training aspect, but you hate the cardio. Everybody's like, fuck the cardio. I fucking hate it. So the moment post show, you're just like, okay, I'll go back to weightlifting and stop doing my cardio, because you don't understand energy balance. You really don't, right? So you take out all this cardio that you were overly doing, if anything, to increase your deficit. And here you go, immediately taking it out and increasing your food and eating like an asshole, right? Then you start eating absolutely everything, all the donuts that you'd been craving, all the freaking extra pizzas and all these extra cheat meals that you don't need. And understanding, again, back energy balance is just the biggest key here, but then understanding your metabolism, right? And I had no idea what the hell was going on, why I was so ravenous, why I was going under the things that I was going, right? Feeling the things I was feeling, thinking I was kind of crazy. And then once you're at that point, if you are already 10, 15, 20 pounds above your stage weight, you feel like depressed. You feel honestly like you lost yourself. You feel worse than when you first started your journey and you're like, what the fuck did I do? Right. And when you're at that point, you have to really reflect and ask yourself how you got there, right? How did you have those binging episodes? Why did it happen? And no, you're not crazy. Okay. You did this to yourself. We went into a deficit, right? We went on stage. We decided to make our body that lean. So we have to strategically reverse out. And this was, again, the tool and the teacher that I had to learn. And my biggest goal, my next show around, was I need to learn how to control myself post-show. I still didn't even understand really the aspect of trying to clean eat. It was just like trying to actually understand, like, it's my energy output versus intake, right? And if you just
for anyone listening to this that, you know, needs to understand, I mean, we all know that in order to lose weight, we need to be in a caloric deficit, right? We need to therefore consume less calories than we are actually expelling. That's how we bridge the gap and lose weight in the first place. But having energy balance, which is, you know, literally it's basically tipping the weight loss scale so that the balance of energy in versus energy out is reducing either your intake or increasing your output, right? So as you said, you can't just go and take all of one side of that scale out and then dump extra on this side, because it's going to be all over the place. And it's also not, you know, taking one side and favoring it alone. So it's literally looking at a slight reduction in the component of output from a cardio point of view, as we're doing a slight increase in, you know, caloric intake. And as we're doing that too, you'll start to see that your actual output in the gym should lift, your performance starts to, you know, increase, you can get back into the strength gains. You start feeling energized to do all the things that up until that point in time you had been driving right down and potentially struggling with, right? So when we're looking at this process too, and what I see a lot of people do, and this is where you talk about clean eating, okay, so calories in, calories out, are all calories equal? As long as you're hitting calories, is that enough? Well, yes, but if we're thinking about this and we're thinking about the fact that we still need to, even though we don't want to, sustain a level of, you know, lowered caloric intake compared to what we might have started on. And what I mean by that is you might have started the whole dieting process on, say, 2,200 calories. That might have been your maintenance, right? By the time you've actually continued to diet for a long time, you've reduced that metabolic rate, and you've reduced that whole, you know, maintenance point. And you may actually be at a new current maintenance point of around, you know, 1,800, 1,900 max, right? And that's because everything has slowed down. And what that, you know, like, the body is an amazing thing. It's like literally going, bitch, you're starving me. I'm now going to reduce the requirements of the body on all of these things so that you don't make me die.
Yeah.
Like, actually.
Simple enough. Literally.
So,
that's exactly
quite literally, without getting into too much complexity. So it's basically bringing all of the operating system requirements down as low as it can, right? Then all of a sudden, if it's operating down here again, because it's still seeing that the intake isn't sufficient for it to do all of the things all of the time like it normally would, that doesn't just all of a sudden change overnight. It's got to feel like confident and comfortable and start getting used to the small parameters being put back in that it's now got access to, and slowly increasing things. Otherwise, you just go bam, it's just going to go bam back, and you'll end up a big whale.
And hitting on that, Ali, because that low point, how you're in the explanation of getting to that peak low point, right? Your lowest body fat percentage, you know, normally would be show day. Hopefully it is show day, and you start reversing post show, unless you had something, you know, planned, you know, after the show, like a shoot. Then you would immediately start reversing post shoot. But one thing I would really address is the fact that some competitors, they actually want to stay stage lean, which is why they continue trying to follow that lifestyle at that low chronic dieting, you know, amount of calories, that then their metabolism starts suppressing, starts slowing down even more. And so many other hormonal issues, gut issues, you know, really start arising. So you can't stay there. You need to have a strategy and have an exit plan post show. And that does have to be discussed with your coach. It has to be done professionally. Don't think that you're going to be able to manage just increasing your calories every single week alone. Because let me tell you, when you can tell yourself you can have an additional 100 calories, it's not going to just be 100 calories that you end up having. You're going to be having a lot more than that. So
this is where the whole foods you're talking about, right? I mean, have you ever tried to overeat on vegetables?
It's so hard.
You can't do it. Like, it's near on impossible. Have you ever tried to overeat on vegetables, fruits, and, you know, a little bit of good quality.
Well, don't put that task for everybody else. Like, some people can. Like,
yeah, I guess. But it's hard, right? It's actually difficult.
Yes, it's
and
hard.
so my point on that is this. If you are going and immediately going, okay, right, I've got X, Y, Z calories and I'm going to allow for the fit of this, this, and this, that's fine. But you are going to be literally ravenous. Your ability to actually adequately and appropriately, even accurately attract that and appropriately fit in enough for you to meet all of your actual, you know, needs is really low and really hard. And it becomes a really difficult process. That's where you're going to start getting those big rebounds. However, do we though think that you can't have absolutely anything fun in your diet and continue to, you know, want to kill yourself every day? No, not at all. You know, it's like anything. The only time you're going to achieve a result, whether you're trying to lose weight, gain weight, whatever it is, it's not by having a specific diet that's going to be the thing that, you know, is a magic pill. It's about creating a structure that allows you adherence. And adherence is going to come because there are elements in there that you still enjoy. There is palatability. You work out a way that something can be sustainable by still having access to some of the things that make it, you know, enjoyable for you. So inside of the reversing process, it doesn't mean reversing cuts out all fun. It basically means you learn how to best structure things so that while you're still increasing slowly and you're not able to go straight to having all of the things you love, you just incorporate in small moments of them, small elements of them, small bits and pieces here and there, but you still structure most of what you're doing as much as possible on those quality, you know, foods, the fruits, vegetables, high fiber, getting your protein, hitting protein.
All your micronutrients.
Correct,
Exactly.
right? And it's going to make it much easier, right? It
Yeah.
really will. And being able to pre-plan social events, I think it helps.
Exactly what I was going to say is like maybe even scheduling those refeeds that you may have, because you're still going to want to continue refeeding, you know, at some point to get back up to that maintenance level. And then there's that concern of some people thinking, well, I'm going to gain too much weight. You know, I'm going to, you know, get to a point where I'm not happy with my physique. Well, you have to have a really good understanding of where your physique naturally sits and not have a body dysmorphia of your own image, you know, because we all get really in love with the way our abs and our legs and our glutes look from stage, that we start really punishing our image and start punishing ourselves and start looking at the scale as something we're increasing and we're in a bad state, when in reality, we need to gain this body fat back to get our hormones back in check. And everyone's hormone levels are going to be different. So trying to find that healthy balance for you, it may take anywhere from 6 to 8 weeks for one individual, may take 8 to 12 for another. So it really differs from person to person.
Yeah, 100%. And I think the important thing to note too is when we're talking about reverse dieting, it's not just for people that are getting on a stage. It's not just, you know, for people that have been a weight class athlete. It is literally for anyone who wants to be able to create weight loss, a desired physique, or even just an improvement in one's physical composition, and then try to maintain it, right? You know, the yo-yo effect, it's the fact that people jump on something, they go aggressive, they go hard out, they go to these really low, unsustainable levels of caloric intake to get there. And look, you might actually need to do that. There might actually need to be that happening for your body to get there. But guess what? Is that optimal? Are you going to have systemic negative impact on a whole bunch of things inside your body afterwards? Possibly, probably more likely than not. So you can't live there. You can't continue it. And it will continue progressively get harder for you. And that's because there is metabolic adaptation every single time we go through systemic or long-term dieting. It is inevitable. We cannot get around it. It's like death and taxes. It's going to happen. Right. So, and we want to be grateful for it because it's our body preserving us, right? It's our body actually preventing us from, I crack jokes a lot, guys, but it is our body's way of stopping us from dying. Like it really is. You know, there is a reason why women lose their menstruation cycle at certain levels of, you know, leanness and or probably not optimized ways to structure their strategic caloric deficits as they come into that level of leanness. You know, if you are completely negating balance across, you know, macros and micros, but you know, poorly structured splits with really no
overtraining,
all sorts of things, right? So the systemic long-term effects of those things on you is horrific. You know, you don't want to be so attached and defined self-worth wise to these temporary levels of condition that you are unable to recognize the requirement to get up and be healthy, right?
Please be listening to this. If you have competed or have done a fat loss or weight loss phase and you've lost your period, your cycle has completely gone away, get out of that deficit. You need to reverse out. You need to increase your calories, get your cycle back, get your hormones regulated to a point where you can actually think for yourself. Right now, when you're freaking at that state, you're not thinking correctly. Your hormones are shit. Like, they're honestly making you feel depressed, moody, and heck, have a lot of physical, right, elements that are happening within you that you feel like you're increasing weight, not being able to obviously lose fat. So build muscle. If you're struggling with any of these things, it's at a point where your metabolism needs to reverse out and adapt to a better frequency of food, as well as probably less frequency of training if you're overtraining. Okay. So another thing too that I find is very common, and you're right, not just in the competing side, but people that maybe want to build, right? Like want to build some muscle, going into this yo-yo phase of thinking you've got to gain all this excessive body fat and all this weight to be able to build muscle. Guys, you do not have to go into this big building phase where you're going to be gaining 20 pounds from stage weight or 20 pounds additional from where your last low point was. You don't need to do that. Find a good place for maintenance and slowly find a surplus and find where your body doesn't increase excessively in body fat. The way
And yeah, we do 100%. And I think that this is a really interesting point too for people that are listening to this that are just literally pure weight loss, is you can have a great result, sure. And then you might find that, okay, you're still doing the same thing you've always done, but you're no longer getting a result, right? You're plateauing, or you're going backwards, or you come into the Christmas season and all of a sudden you have a little bit of extra indulgence, not a whole heap, but a little bit. And then next minute, wow, bam, 5 kilos back on, right? There's a reason for all of that. And this is where the strategic, positioning of having periods of a reverse diet and coming up out of those really low, unsustainable levels of caloric intake are important, because it's going to prevent you from being unable to either maintain, sustain, or continue that weight loss journey. You want to basically repair, or if we think about it like, the entire metabolic process of the body starts to down regulate. So we think about it like a fire. The fire starts dwindling down with just embers. It's a process of throwing good quality logs and some goddamn gasoline back on the fire and reigniting the flames and boosting those levels right back up. You can then raise that metabolic rate and raise that maintenance level of calories higher again, either closer to what it was like before you started the dieting phase, or higher than it's ever been if you are a consistent yo-yo dieter. And the benefit of that is you will be able to maintain better quality health across every single function of the body, number one, hormonal balance, number two, but you will also be able to then pursue further weight loss and lean composition development by having actual more lean tissue development. But you'll be able to focus on that and chase that on much higher calories. I mean, who doesn't want to lose body fat eating more food? And if you say it's not you, you're mental. Like, I don't know anyone.
And that's actually the reason that leads me into how we started this convo, is that the reason why I had such a bad post-show reverse, I had no reverse, I had no strategy. So my goal was to actually create one and have one and follow it. So let me go into my second reverse. I fucking failed. I had a strategy, but I failed. And I think this is where a lot of competitors are like, okay, I'm going to reverse. And then they talking about reversing. They last a week and then poof, they're gone. They just completely fell off and they just said, fuck it, and just completely started eating again. So,
well, they hang out with mates and go get on the piss. And then before you know it, it's that repetitive cycle of partying from Thursday through Monday, wake up Tuesday, forget how to spell my name. Oh shit, that's a whole nother week reverse dieting gone. I see it all the time too. Or worse yet, this is the one I hate. Oh, now the show's over. I can't afford this. I'm going to try to do this on my own. Oh, really? Are you? How's that?
Wait till you do that.
Yeah. It's like, exactly. How'd that work out for you?
Yeah. Because 6 months later, they're going to come back like, oh my God, I'm in a worse position than when I started.
Exactly.
So that second time was a very big eye opener for me that the reversing is actually harder than prepping. So listen to this, people. Okay. You are in a deficit with a goal to get on the stage or do your shoot, or that fact that you had that number to reach, right? Like you're like, once I get to this certain number, I like, that's my end goal. And then I can, I don't even know, what are we thinking, that we're just going to celebrate and then like stop? I guess that's what we think, I'm trying to always remember, what was I thinking, and it's more about like having that strategy, but then even then, understanding it's going to be difficult, and you have to have some strategy set up post show if you have some trigger points and some temptations that you're not going to say no to. Myself, very social, like Alex said, being the party, eating smallies and having a drink, and that's definitely one of the things that if I post show went and did a vacation, it was out the window. It was completely, and that's actually kind of what happened. So the next time around, I was like, no vacation. Okay, no vacation. I actually have to have a deadline. I have to have a goal. I have to have something to make sure I get back on track. And that's how I learned myself. That's how I started to make sure I had discipline enough to reverse out. And from that third one on, I just got better. I got better every single time. Each reverse got easier. Not that I was making it, obviously easier on myself. It was just that I knew myself and I understood what was going to come from it. I understood what metabolism was going to get a little hangry and I needed to obviously fight it, and then just wait till I naturally increased and my metabolism adapted. So once you get to that point, this leads me to having a good maintenance and starting point for any prep, or being able to feel like you're 6 weeks out from doing a little mini prep, right? So if I did know I had a shoot or an event or a show, I'm just going to start doing some minor changes, like small adjustments, maybe start increasing some expenditure, maybe cutting back some things. Like for myself, it's going to be some fats, right? Like, and I thrive off of carbs. So definitely fats in my intake being reduced are immediately going to make me tighten up a bit. And for that, I'm able to understand where I can, be throughout the year. So for anyone listening to this, reverse dieting, you gain control of your life. Okay. You actually understand what your body's undergoing. If you want to get to a building phase, you want to get to a cutting phase, you want to maintain, you understand all the processes that it takes to get there. And it's honestly
and I think, for anyone just with generic weight loss, it's recognizing that you're going to have periods of diet breaking, right? So whether or not we label it as a full reverse, and you go through a full reverse process with the whole concept of trying to build up to that maintenance caloric intake and then increasing that range higher, or whether or not it's at least a diet break coming up close to the current maintenance levels, just so that you got that reduction on that little hunger gremlin that's sitting inside your head telling you to eat all of the Ben & Jerry's and every donut on the planet, right? Because that's a real thing. The studies show that your actual hunger levels, when you're in a long-term systemic dieting process, they increase 3 times the volume of the actual qualitative weight that you've lost. So imagine that. You got this little man inside your head telling you, just fucking eat, lady, all of the food. It'll be fine. I promise. And that's on a volume Richter scale times 3. Like, who isn't going to at some point crumble to that? The minute you have that bad day or that bad moment, I mean, it's little wonder that people do have those, but what they then, later profess on binging episodes, right? So if any of those behaviors are coming up for you, that's a really great time to look at this and go, how long have I been doing this for? What's my body trying to tell me? It's probably trying to say, bitch, I'm like literally dying here. Please just give me a little bit of a reprieve and take that moment, right? It doesn't mean that you jump straight up to the highest level of caloric intake. It doesn't mean you look at Mary Jane on social with her influence following of 1 million and think, oh, well, she's doing 400 grams of carbs, so should I. No, you don't. You literally just sit down and revisit your output. You calculate your total daily energy expenditure, and we literally just move into a process of thinking about matching the demand. So just creating an energy balance. That's it, just to start with, right? If you're coming out of the back end of a show, I strongly suggest that you're looking at getting to your current, not your pre-dieting, your current actual maintenance level, and then increasing it. Like For some people, it's got to be done aggressively because they may actually have had a lot of really negative side effects from being so lean, like loss of libido, you know, crazy hormone imbalances, maybe even loss of cycle. If that's you, stop trying to hold on to your abs and get your goddamn maintenance right up, plus 20, 30% on top. That's what you want to do as quickly as possible, right? For everyone else, you know, you can do a conservative and add, you know, you can go to maintenance and then maintenance plus 10%. You can go moderate level, which is, you know, your maintenance plus 20%. You check your weekly stats every week still like you would in a prep phase until you get to the point where you are weight stable and you are feeling normalcy. And what I mean by normalcy is regulated cycles, sleeping really well, energy, getting out of bed, kickstarting the day, ready to rock and roll, lifts that are out of control, swinging the barbell through the roof, popping windows on your way out with your shoulders, like all sorts of stuff that you would want to be feeling. Once you hit that, then you can start to reassess it and pull back and not have to be so diligent, meticulous, and obsessive about it, right? My other thing would be this. I'm really big on being intuitive at certain stages in your off season. I'm really big on it. You guys would have seen and followed me where I, you know, like I hate to use the word wing it. I've been doing this a long time. I'm really good at eyeballing amounts. I can pretty much be within a few sides of the grammage expectation on what I think. I'm not an over or underestimator. I have no poor or negative relationship with food. My self-image is pretty darn freaking good. So I'm fine, right? So I can live my life like that and be a wing it and an intuitive response eater. However, do I now know well enough to know this? Would I do that straight after a show? Oh, hell no. Want to know why? Remember that little man that's 3 times the volume inside my head? Do you think he's going to be telling my stomach or my stomach telling him when I'm actually legitimately full? Oh, fuck no.
That's what I'm getting at. You cannot out coaching. And I cannot stress, like, having actually someone to hold yourself accountable to. These check-ins, like you said, are the most important. If you are not doing these post-show, I'm telling you, if you don't have a strategy, you don't have an exit plan, you're going to go to shit because your mind, exactly like you said, that little man is going to win that battle because there's nothing there for us to actually be holding on to the stage leanness. So we're just going to throw it out the window. So maybe setting up. So for you competitors that are coming post-show, one of the best strategies that worked for me was setting up shoots. And this is going to allow you to learn how to love your body in all the stages as well.
But having said that, let's caveat that for a minute, Steph, because you are not setting up shoots with the goal to stay stage lean for those. No. So everyone listening to this, please take note. I'm going to repeat this for the 3rd time. You were not looking to keep your stage level physique for those shoots.
No.
Great. Everyone got that at home. I'm going to
so really the reason why, yes, I'm with you. The reason why I'm saying set up the shoots and maybe multiple, and I know that sounds like a lot of money, but like what I'm getting at, this is to set up a strategy, okay, to actually have an exit plan. Do 1, 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks. If you obviously can't do that many shoots, do 1 4 weeks out and 8 weeks out, okay? What this is going to allow you to do is really adhere to your reverse protocols. And not only that, you're going to check in every single week. You're going to make sure you're still doing your cardio protocols. You're still actually following a meal plan, trying to be as strict as possible.
On that note, for everyone listening, are you going to gain weight? Yes, you are. It's not all body fat, as long as you're not eating like an asshole. It won't be. And you're going to gain, and this is the best time to be maximizing your actual potential inside the gym to gain the most amount of mass possible, right? So get in, have vision, have direction. And this leads us into what will be next week's topic. So stay tuned, please tune in on this. We're going to discuss how to take strategic feedback from the stage into your strategy for your reverse, into your strategy for your development season. If you are an actual competitor, an athlete looking to go pro, or you are a pro, this is 100% how you're going to be tackling everything you do. You don't come on and off. You're on all the time. You just have a different focus.
Exactly.
Correct.
No off
different strategy.
Yep.
Correct. So, you're going to gain. Yes. You should be looking at the body parts and the areas you want to enhance and growing those and focus on the measurement increases. You move. You're still tracking weight at this point in the reverse because it's still relevant, because we're still increasing food, and it's obviously looking at and reestablishing new current maintenance levels. So that's a moving and evolving process, as is the body weight and composition, right? So as that moving target's moving up and up and up and doing all the really good things we want it to be doing, yes, weight's going to be gained. So people throw the scale outside of the purpose of doing your weekly check-in. If you have issues with it, do that. If not, please get really comfortable with just tracking day to day and understanding fluctuations. They're totally normal too. And get very, very comfortable very quickly with the concept of focusing on development and in personal improvement over hanging on to the past and the last stage you've just left, because God damn it, you're only as good as that last stage. So you better be looking to improve it next time, right?
Yes, improvements are only come from drawing out that strategy. So yes.
Yeah, I think it's super important. And I think you need to be having conversations with your coach, with your support network, with people about the things you're going to struggle with. You need to have respect for the things that you've found out about yourself when it comes to triggers. And there are so many reasons people don't keep weight off. And it is not just physical. It can be psychological, it can be sociological, it can be the friendship circle you keep, the influences around you, it can be financial, right? There can be a multitude of reasons that people yo-yo diet and or blow the hell out straight after a show, right? And I think one of the biggest things is, before you get to stage, have really quality conversations with your coaching team or your network team your support team, to go, hey, I know these things about myself. I know this is going to be hard. I know that I've got these social events coming up. I know that I'm going to really struggle at these. Get strategies in place. Learn how to navigate them. Learn how best to set yourself up for success. Now, we're not saying perfection. We don't expect you to take a reverse diet and be meticulous to the gram and tick every single box and be this robot, because no one, not Steph, not I, are that. You know, we will still have the odd whine here and there as we're still ticking boxes in every other area, because we're human, right? So I don't think you should expect that of yourself either. But what you should do is have pre-planned strategies for things you know are going to be hard. You should have a structure for understanding where you're going, what it should look like, and learning about your body. Take a vested interest, become educated in this process. Don't just wing it, and don't just hand it to someone and then wonder why you're not implementing it. Well, of course you're not. If you're not vested, if you don't have skin in the game, why would you be? So really ask the questions, get involved, get on board that train, because I promise you, not only will you regain your best health faster, but you will optimize your off season, get better results. And if you're chasing a pro card, you've got well more chance of getting it next time you get on stage. And if you are pro, well, then you'll finally get to a point where you are a competitive pro. So these are the keys here, people. You know, I think the take home tips are this: do not put definition or self-worth around the way you look on a stage and try to carry that into your life forever. That's a losing battle. It's also somewhat sad, right? So I think work through the elements behind why you feel that might be the case for you. Number two, look forward, look at the improvements, look at the developments, look at where you want to go and what you're doing, and then create the reverse strategy and then the post reverse, which is when you're going to come into a development season around that, right? And then lastly, let go of this concept that in a reverse process, it's just your opportunity to take back all the foods you've missed, because you can little bit by little bit, and it can be part of the strategy. Yes. I think it's important. So you've got adherence, and also, you know, some normalcy in your life, especially if you want to have dinner with husbands and, you know, I don't know, like for me, it's always my belated birthday, like whatever it is, right? Learn how you can have elements of it, but it's got to be 80-20, and you've got to be at a point where it's still structured. There must be structure. Otherwise you will be, as Steph has learned in her, you know, experiences, falling off the wagon real quick. And you know, my lesson was that I never did the really off the Richter scale. I never did that. But what I learned from when I had a lot less structure was that I was reversing too slow, and I also probably overcompensated for things. And back then, with less education, I 100% would have been still doing too much in my day-to-day. So my energy balance was not met. Even though I was increasing food, I was still out here doing all of the things.
Doing crazy amounts. So yeah, you're opposite
how I am anyway, right? I'd be doing like 30,000 steps just because we would be traveling overseas, and I'd be walking through all the countrysides, like, not because I'm trying to lose weight, just because it's my life. So I now know that. So I raise my food faster, and I raise it much higher than I would have done. But guess what it did for me? And this was my lesson. my first 2 pro shows weren't my best shows, and not because I wasn't still training like a beast, working harder than everyone else usually in my immediate circle. It was just the fact that I hadn't pushed my RMR up, and my starting point was always way lower than what it should be. Yeah. So what I learned was I just got a little bit more structure, and I'm still not that person where it's anal, but I am an 80%. So I'm an 80-20 girl, and I talk about this all the time. And I think that gives me adherence, and I'm good with it. And then that gets me to a point where I still look freaking tidy and like I'm, really close off a stage 4 months later.
That's exactly why it's one of those sustainable, physiques where you're in a maintenance level and you can still build. Please listen and please take this home. You can still build in a maintenance space. You don't have to be in this big surplus. So for those that are just trying to get in a surplus really quickly to build, just remember you can stay in maintenance for a little longer than you trying to go into a direct surplus. So,
and especially if you are someone, hey Steph, you'll have seen this with some of your girls that have been a chronic dieter and a chronic yo-yoer. You jumping up too high too soon, you literally will just, you're going to look like the Michelin Man, and we don't need that, right? So just remember that. Remember that your history comes into this too, like understanding how long you might have been doing these things for, then you understand the reverse process may take longer for you, right? So I think all of these things are really important considerations, but the whole purpose of it is to get you to a point where you are matching your energy demands, you are, vibrating everything at the highest level possible, and you've got all your bodily functions happening effectively, efficiently, healthily, and in a, I guess the most pertinent level to be able to commence the next fat loss phase if you're a competitor. Because there is nothing worse than, getting on stage, eating air. That is not fun.
But that's okay. But that goes with if you gain so much weight, you have this excessive body fat going into your next prep. You didn't have a good successful reverse. You went into just a building season in your head that you're thinking you're like a bodybuilder and gaining all this body fat and going to convert it into muscle. It's not going to be. You're going to have a lot longer process to even lean out. You're going to still look the same. If anything, you might have only added a little amount of lean muscle tissue, and you went through all of this psychological just depression and like this yo-yo phase that made you feel like crap. Like what did I do? And so just trying to not get to that point. And yes, going to a surplus, a lot of individuals need that because they actually need to be in a much higher, amount of calories just to build a good amount of muscle. But that also depends on how long they're there. No, I mean, you're not going to just stay there for 4 weeks. I mean, you want to stay there for a good amount of time and then start, trying to get your metabolism to adapt to those calories, right? Match the stimulus, match your efforts to your calories. A lot of people want to push these calories, Allie, and they don't like to train. They want to just, they want to eat the food, but they don't want to actually hit the weights. So there is a very big, obviously misconception out there with reverse dieting, being something that is like the prep. Like it's not. And the reason why I say it's harder than the prep sometimes, I think it's because you don't have a deadline and you don't really have something that is, you're not going to be in a 2-piece in front of people, getting judged. So because of that, I found that doing shoots, and you're not trying to stay lean for these shoots, but you still have to, get in front of the camera.
You still have to look tidy. And I think that you're exactly right. That is what it is for people, is the loss of the end game, right? So they're like, well, I'm not going to look amazing. And this is why I said the first point I made, point 1, stop defining yourself by that stage condition, stage lean moment in time, because you're just going to be left with a lot of emptiness, right? It's got there has to be more purpose to what you're doing, why you're doing it, and why this is important to you than that. It just can't be about that alone.
Let it be the achievement to honestly just getting stage make you so happy, because I don't know who's listening to this that needs to hear that, but it's not the win that makes you feel like a winner. You can be at first place, get a pro card, and still feel like you did not, and did not feel like you were the winner. So I've seen that happen on stage multiple times. And it's not, I mean, they look fantastic. They look amazing, but they are not okay with themselves because you're not in a good headspace. You don't look at yourself that way. So just know getting to the stage alone is a win. Like I started this, whole podcast with, like, we're so proud of all of our clients that grace the stage, and we have a big team going on to these next shows. I know you guys have a July show and an October show. I think your second pro show, right? Second pro show in Australia.
Yeah, we'll be
later on in the
year. It would have been our third if it wasn't for last year, but this will be our, no, actually this would have been our fourth.
Wait.
Yeah, third. We had, yes, we had, because Jess Campus won, Jess Coates, she won.
Oh, you're right. Yeah.
She won the
I thought
first
that was
skinny, then Libby, our girl, won the second, and now
gotcha.
it's,
Yeah,
we
gotcha.
missed
So
last
this
year,
is
and
the
it's,
third.
yeah.
This is the third.
So
Got it.
that's right. So this will be the third. Would have been the fourth, but is the third. So which
We're
is
having
great.
the Bahamas obviously here in a few weeks. That's the next pro
Yes.
am, that is coming up. And then we have the Worlds and obviously a lot of other regional shows too. So a lot of competitors, a lot of our teams are going to be gracing the stage again. And you'll be probably seeing a lot of, different posts from Ali and I about reverse tiding. And
Look, we will. And we'll probably touch on this again further. This is a very superficial conversation today, talking just big picture and the relevance of it. So people are just aware of it to begin with. And we might bring somewhat of an expert in the area on to discuss this about a little bit more in the how to and the algorithms you can do and different elements of putting pen to paper to make this happen, right? And so I've got a couple people in mind straight away. And we will probably look at bringing someone on. So then anyone listening to this that wants to know a little bit more nuts and bolts can go through that. But then also too, I'd be strongly suggesting if you're working with a coach, raise it with them, have a strategy. If they can't help you with it, go find someone that can, and make sure they have a goal and there is structure to it and they're discussing it with you even before you hit the stage. If you do not have a coach talking to you about the pro-show process before you've even hit the stage, Jesus Christ, question
it's not going to happen after.
No,
it's not going to happen after.
Correct.
So you need to have this set up way beforehand. You even get on stage before,
or at least the blueprint of it, so you understand what's coming around the corner and there's logic to the process for you, right? Very important. And then lastly, I think when we're looking at the fact we just chatted about shows coming up, if you're someone that's looking at this, and I'll give you an example, Gold Coast just rolled down. We've got a lot of people that got top 3 but are coming back for the win. And they are literally focused now on going from, April to the July show.
July? Okay.
That's not a very long time. If you were in a very low, unsustainable caloric intake just to make that stage, then you really need to assess, all right, that's fine. Am I going to really fuck myself by taking myself from there to there? Do I have enough time to reverse up at least a little, spend a little bit of time, recharge, rejuvenate, bring that, metabolic, upregulate everything a little bit? Before I go back in? Will I still have to come back in on even lower calories than I was for that show? Then if so, bail out, reverse out and do October instead. If not though, just at least have a strategy and come up and out and do the right things to support all of your bodily functions between now and when you've got to start the cut again. And if you're managing the process really well and you've got a good coach with you doing it, it can be done and it can be done safely. But that is the optimal word here, safely. No stage is worth absolutely losing your reproductive function and becoming infertile or completely destroying your hormonal balance to a point where, it takes you ages to recover it.
It can definitely be done. And for those that are going to be doing, they came off the Gold Coast and want to do the July show again, you can do this. And just like Ali said, please make sure you have a strategy, whether if that's to come up to maintenance level for a few weeks and before you obviously start going back down into a deficit. We had a lot of girls in the Miami show do that just to be able to do this Orlando show again. So they weren't far apart. Like they were very close. So same situation there. So
and if you are on a fairly decent caloric intake in the deficit, and what I mean by that is you're still in the deficit, but it's not a suboptimal level. You're not in a clinical low EA, right? If that's,
or for those that didn't maybe do as well as they wanted to do, don't have to come out into a reverse if you didn't hit your low point. So for those to understand that if you had still a little more time that needed to be done underneath your belt to get a little leaner, this is just the ability to continue having more time and continue working on those improvements and keep getting leaner, keep dropping, obviously a little more body fat and get just the improvements to show your second time around on stage for July. So that's always the fun part of getting on stage back to back. Judges will see those improvements. So
they do. All right, so that's, I think, our parting words of wisdom to you. Just check yourself before you wreck yourself if you're going from one stage to another, and make sure that the reverse should be part of your entire prep process. It shouldn't just be the cut to stage. This should be, if not bigger and more important than the prior part.
The diet after the diet.
Exactly right. So I hope that's helped some of you, and I hope it's just putting this into perspective too, even for those that are not getting on stage, that it's important to not just drive your ass to the ground day in, day out. eternally. It's impossible, right? You must have these phases where it's a fat loss phase and it's a reverse phase, a build phase and a cut phase. Have phases to the approach you choose for the year. And I think you will have a physique you love, a life you don't hate, and something that is completely sustainable, right?
Sustainable is key. That is the key word right there.
All right. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We love all of you. We are completely appreciative of your ongoing support. We would love to hear your comments and feedback and see you share and like and maybe rate us online. You can find us on all the variable locations, the multitude of locations, which we will launch when we actually post this episode. So they'll be listed below. And we really look forward to hearing your feedback about next week's when we talk about all things taking on board feedback, criticism, post-show judging, commentary, and then how to then structure that to come back bigger, better, faster, leaner, stronger, to improve your positional ranking.
Yes, for sure.
So until then,
everyone for tuning in.
Good luck with those reverses. See ya.
See ya.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Queen Divas, Queens of Fitness podcast. Make sure you follow us on Instagram at Queen Divas Pod, on Twitter at Queen Divas 4, and follow our hosts on Instagram, Alicia at Alicia Gowans _WBFF Pro, and Steph at Stephanie Ayala 7. See you all next week.